Good evening. Welcome to RFD-TV Live. Tonight, RFD-TV Live with AGROTAIN. I'm your host, Mark Opel. Tonight, we're embarking on the first of two nights this week in which we'll be reviewing some of the top issues in nitrogen management that growers will be facing here in 2012. Tonight, of course, part one. We return this Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central Time. Write that down. We'd love to have you rejoin us here for part two as well. Joining me both nights, in fact, a couple of returning panelists here from Koch Agronomic Services. To my left, Director of Agronomy, Dr. Greg Schaub. And Greg, great to have you back as well.
It's great to be here.
You bet. Good to have you here. We'll get to a little bit of your background in just a moment. Next to Greg is our regional manager with Koch Agronomic Services, and that would be Martin Case. Martin, good to see you again as well.
Good to be back.
Let's start with you, and for people seeing you for the first time, your background. Where's home originally?
Well, I grew up in a farm in western Colorado, went to Colorado State, but I've been involved with AGROTAIN products and Koch Agronomics since 1997.
How time goes by here.
It does go fast.
And you're in town for the Commodity Classic, so we get you all for 2 times this week.
Yeah, get to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. I said it's Schwab.
Schwab,
I'm going to make sure, because they say Opel, Doppel, all kinds of different things too, so I'm very sensitive to people's last names. But your background, where's home originally for you, Greg?
Yeah, I grew up in southwestern Ohio and ended up going to school in Kentucky, Alabama, and Kansas, and then ended up with a job at Washington State University for a couple years.
Wow.
University of Kentucky for 9 years, and then hired on last year in April for Koch, and love this new position.
Wow, you've been around the country, a lot of different colors in those universities and schools there. Good to have you back again. And again, take a moment to acknowledge what a special week it is for agriculture in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Commodity Classic Week, the largest annual meeting of growers from around the U.S., corn growers, soybean, wheat, and sorghum producers. Every year at this time, they meet at a location, rotating back to Nashville this year, and we are glad to have them here. Our friends at Koch Agronomic Services and AGROTAIN nitrogen stabilizers are producing not only this two-part special tonight and Thursday night, but we'll be recording a special live taping on the floor of the Commodity Classic trade floor. That's coming up this Friday, 11:30 Central Time. So if you're watching tonight and you're going to be traveling to Nashville for Commodity Classic, or you know someone who is going to be here, give them a call and have them join us around lunchtime in the lunch area, matter of fact, for the taping of Friday's show. We'd love to have them sit in the audience. It'll be about 11:30 again Central Time. Well, to begin, we have a lot of video to share. You brought a lot of video with you from around the country, different agronomists or researchers, and we want to start out, in fact, by kind of tying it to the Commodity Classic. We've caught up with some of the NCGA, some of the corn grower leaders at the National Farm Progress Show, and they talked about the importance and the relevance of the Commodity Classic to farmers here this week. We wanted to share some of that with you to emphasize how valuable this meeting has become to all of U.S. agriculture.
You know, I describe Commodity Classic as all the farmers getting together to see all the products on the market. And probably what gets me excited is new technologies.
I think it's the premier farmer-focused, farmer-driven trade show in the United States.
Commodity Classic is one of my favorite events of the year. Not only as a corn grower, but as a corn leader. It's the place to be in the wintertime. We have a policy development session there. And the thing is good for corn growers, there are many win sessions that you can attend. You learn what's on the cutting edge of agriculture. And for instance, last time around we had some interesting information about going forward, what the farm bill would look like and how corn growers can plan for the future. And one of the best things is it's a place where you can network with your neighbors and get to know new people and learn about a little bit about what agriculture is like in the other states.
The main reason I don't want to miss Commodity Classic is because of the new technologies coming on board for this next year. I want to make sure that I have it on my farm so that we can be as productive as possible.
You don't want to miss Commodity Classic because it is the place where you can go. It's not like a Farm Progress Show. It's not like the Louisville Farm Show where there are just thousands and thousands and thousands of people. At Commodity Classic, you can sit down with the people in the trade show who are the movers and shakers of their companies. and really get down and get really innovative ideas from them.
Usually you can come back from those meetings with at least a $100 idea, if not some new innovative things to try in your own operation.
The education is very important. We have 17 learning center sessions, which are chosen by the joint venture committee, who run the 6-member joint venture committee to run Commodity Classic, 3 from the American Soybean Association, 3 from National Corn Growers. Those sessions are chosen by farmers. There are sessions on marketing, there are sessions on production, there are sessions on social media, and probably the most growing session we have is on farm succession. Those sessions are really becoming very popular.
Well, I really enjoyed the policy development. It helps us to determine what's the best direction for NCGA to take in the future years.
Nashville's a great town to be in. I love going to Nashville. There's so much to do, even outside. Plus, I mean, it's great that this show is all under one roof. That makes it a lot easier to get to where you need to be. But it's also a great town to go downtown and have a good time in.
Nashville, Tennessee is one of my most exciting places to be for Commodity Classic. Everything's under one roof. You got the opportunity to move around and see things, and it's just a fun place to be in the wintertime also.
I love the Commodity Classic when it is in Nashville, Tennessee. I've actually been there. This will be my 3rd time, and I love the country music.
I just want to tell you that Commodity Classic is the premier trade show in the country for corn, soybean, grain, sorghum, and wheat growers.
Again, we look forward to inviting people to Nashville for the 2012 Commodity Classic. Some already arriving here today. Our friends from AGROTAIN here, and Greg and Martin. I know you're looking forward to seeing some friends that maybe you see once a year at Commodity Classic. And again, for viewers, we will be having a special taping with our friends from AGROTAIN. Again, if you're just joining us, we'll be back Thursday night live here on RFD-TV at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central Time. And then on Friday around 11:30 Central Time, Nashville time, we'll be taping a show with our friends from AGROTAIN right around the lunch area. Pretty easy to find. Everybody gets hungry about lunchtime, so we'll be in that area. Look forward to having you sit down and just enjoy our panel then as well. And that show will be aired on March the 26th. So we have we saw a video there just again about the Commodity Classic. But Greg, a lot of other videos here that pertain to our topic tonight: nitrogen stabilization. Some great clips coming our way.
That's right. So tonight we're going to take a look at some of our past segments, some very interesting people, very interesting ideas and concepts around our products, and it's going to be exciting.
What's the first one here?
The first one is Jed Lafferty. He's from Planalytics. He's a weather person. He looks at weather patterns and things like that. And he's been looking at how El Nino and La Nina affect the weather patterns in the Midwest, and it's really some pretty interesting results that he's seen.
We had, I remember the show, obviously, a recent show, and a lot of reaction when you talk about weather. Everybody wants to talk about the weather, but you talk about La Nina, El Nino, and those kind of things. So here is Jed Lafferty as we look back at that recent show on February the 6th.
So one of the things that we do is that we look at historic weather. We look at what current conditions are, and then we compare those cycles that we've seen before to come up with a future-looking forecast. I think we've got some visuals here. If we can
Take
pull
a look
those
at
up.
The first one here. What do we?
The first one here is something. It's a weather map unlike anything that you've probably ever seen before out there. This is a sea surface temperature anomaly map from January of 2010. What you see, those black areas, by the way, and you're going to see a couple of these maps. The black areas represent continents. And right in the center of the map, you see a red oval around an area of very orange and reddish-orange colors. What we're looking at there are changes in the temperature of the sea surface from normal. So where you see that yellow and red area, that's an indication that the temperatures are warmer than normal, and that's a typical El Nino pattern. And that's what we saw in January of 2010.
Okay.
Now, why that's important is if you look at the next slide, this is what happens in a typical El Nino year. You see a Pacific jet stream that brings cool, wet conditions over the southern part of the United States, and warm, dry conditions are pulled into the northern tier by the polar jet stream. That's a typical El Nino year, and that's what we saw in 2010. However, it changed very, very rapidly. And as you can see in the next slide, that same area in the center of the map that was orange and red in
a year
the
ago,
2010 map in January
or 2010,
had quickly turned to a La Nina. A La Nina is characterized by cold sea surface temperatures in that area of the equatorial Pacific. Now, a La Nina is the meteorological opposite of an El Nino. Instead of having the Pacific jet stream bring cool, wet conditions across the southern tier, it brings dry and very warm conditions, and we saw that in spades this past year in the southern plains and Oklahoma and Texas. At the same time, and this is a fairly typical La Nina characterization here, where we see the cool, wet conditions being brought down by the polar jet stream into the northern tier.
Absolutely, and our folks in the Dakotas can certainly relate to that last visual there. It was some that never got the crop planted in the spring wheat belt up there.
Exactly.
And the flooding, of course, that went along with that all summer long along the Missouri and east of the Mississippi as well.
Exactly. So if you look at the next image that we have here, what it shows you is that we're going to be comparing what happened in 2010 in an El Nino year with what happened in 2011 using satellite imagery to measure biomass. We work with the folks at the University of Kansas Applied Remote Sensing Laboratory and their partners, Terrametrics Agriculture Incorporated, to capture images of biomass. It actually is a satellite image that captures infrared shades and then converts that to shades of green and brown. So where you see the green shades, the dark green shades in 2010 in El Nino, that shows a pretty healthy situation. In 2011, however, that yellowish area that you see in the upper Midwest, West Texas and so forth, is the absence of biomass, but for very different reasons. In Texas, it was because of the drought. In the upper Midwest and the Missouri Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and the Mississippi Delta, that's because of late planting brought about by the flooding and other conditions that we saw last spring.
Wow, very interesting.